My fellow Americans, we begin bombing in 5 minutes.
The revolution will not be televised.
Peace and blessings. This is Brother Zerahkyah from the Universal Breath of Life. I'm joined by my brothers VCR from BloodSkinLand Productions, the almighty Sile the First from the
Messianic African Nation of Yeshua, RBG Souldiers of Yeshua Division, the Messianic African Nation.
Pass the mic. We got Brother Iropa,
Grand Architect,
dynamic artist.
Yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the world to my man, Hazael.
Big up, big up.
FTC Marketing,
Yes.
Universal Breath of Life, www.poettube.org.
Poettube.org.
Yes. Yes.
www.wedoregister.com.
Much blessings.
Shouts out before we get started. Shouts out to my man Jamal Crawford, aka Uno the Prophet,
AKA Nat Turner Devil Burner.
holding up the bloodstained banner for the new Black Panther Party here in Boston.
Holla, holla.
Boston chapter chairman.
To my man King Vargas, reawakening the African minds.
On so many levels.
So many levels. Smith Leadership Academy, big up
Vargas is my man on so many levels.
on so many levels.
Shout out to the elders, Elder Rumas, Elder Sadiq
Dig.
Cambone, Queen Zakia.
Yes. Big up to Original Films, Jabril Haynes,
We would be
Nicole
remiss
Parker.
if we didn't mention Brother Jabril.
Yes.
All of the productivity going on in the hood, such as Boy Slayman Jr. from Papa B's
Papa
Restaurant,
B's.
Mamie Dorsey down there at the Hair Kingdom, Joe Dorsey with the Dorsey Construction Company. We doing big things.
I want to give a shout out to Brandon German and lovely Hoffman.
The lovely.
And give a shout out to Sister Bria Smith. Doing her thing down in Berkeley.
Shout out to Young, Gifted, and Black.
Yes. All the young, talented artists. Sophia Snow, Ketch Rec, and the Reality Click. Ketchup. Oh boy. Desiree Rivera, aka Realize. Yambo or Yambeezy and his crew, X-Rated. Big up to Marquita Niles.
DJ Nomadic,
DJ Nomadic, yes.
Spears Nice.
Biz Nice.
Guess you ain't going to the ball with me.
I want to give a shout out to Natural Bliss. Pro-black militants. Indeed.
All right, so we're gonna set it off. My brother from another mother on the boards, Hazael. He's gonna be flipping the tracks as we philosophize, interlist.
It's all right, brother. Keep it moving.
I'm just nervous. I know that 1 million people are listening to this.
Poettube.org.
We're gonna discuss. Actually, the topic is open. I'm moved in the whole spirit of passing the torch. The older generation speaks as passing the torch, but it's time for the younger generation to talk on receiving that torch. What does that mean? there's a lot of things to consider when we talk about passing the torch, or if we sit here and discuss receiving the torch. What is the torch? What does it look like, and what is the duty of those that bear it now, and what is the duty of those of us who are to bear it? So I look back at brothers like Ben Ami. I look back at Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali. Y'all can help me out with some names.
Father Allah, Reverend Albert Cleage, a.k.a. Jaramogi Agiman.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Drew Ali. Noble Drew Ali.
Right. And it's one thing to speak about the brothers that have left us physically, but passing the torch encompasses so much more as well. Not that these brothers can never be replaced like that, because their names are ever etched in the annals of history. But we have history makers right in our face, but somehow or another, we don't respect those that are still living the way that we should.
Right.
So I'm looking at brothers like Royal from the United Nation of Islam. I'm looking at brothers like Pastor Floyd Flake from Brooklyn, New York.
Floyd Patterson, is it? Is it Floyd?
Boxer, bro.
Okay, my fault. My bad. We was calling on so many ancestors in here, you know, I just...
Let's go. Let's go.
Floyd Flake. I thought it was more than that name, my fault.
We're going to go to a commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Reverend Michael Beckwith. These brothers, to me, they bear great significance. I even got to give shouts to Minister Silas Muhammad.
Minister Farrakhan, that's not...
Absolutely, Minister Farrakhan. Imam Siraj Wahaj. Imam Qasim Khan. See, these brothers are an integral part of the ongoing struggle. And we all have our lot in life. We all have our chosen destinies and particular portions in the redemptive struggle for black people.
Well, I think when we talk about receiving the torch, I think history has shown that torches are never really passed; they're taken.
Right.
So it's like when the previous generation, when they start getting tired and the torch is too heavy for them to carry, it's our job to pick it up and carry on the work. They may not want to let go of it, but sometimes if you're getting sick, like for example, if you have a relative that's getting sick, he doesn't really want to accept the fact that they're getting sick and too weak. But because out of your love for that relative, you're going to have to carry on the chores and the tasks that he once was carrying on, and just do that regardless.
Me and Brother V was talking last night and on that same wise, and I was saying that we have those that, listen, as the now generation, we are obligated to respect those who came before us, whether living or not living. We are obligated, duty bound to respect them, but it's reciprocal, because an intelligent ancestor would understand the importance of the now generation, and that their role is no more significant than our role. It goes hand in hand. When you look at a relay race, the first leg or the second leg is no more significant than the third leg. They all have a vital role to play. And if you take any one of those legs out of the race, you forfeit the winnings of that race. You can't possibly win. And so somehow, just like you said, sometimes the brothers and or sisters, the elders, sometimes we stifle or the development process of this struggle is stifled when the torch is not only handed, it's not released. Imagine running that race, and when I extend the baton to you, I still have a firm clutch on it. So now, not only do you have to keep running, you have to drag me along because I'm not letting that go. So,
and to piggyback on that, I mean, you have to keep in mind that sometimes, you know, what baton are you passing and what torch are you passing? Are you passing me a torch that doesn't even have a flame? You know what I'm saying? Or are you passing me the baton in a race that we already lost? You know what I'm saying? So it's something deep, you know what I'm saying, where we don't want you to pass us a baton in which we already lost the race. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dang, man, what's the purpose in keep running? Why am I continue running if you're gonna pass me that baton?
Right.
You was far behind. You was lagging behind.
Absolutely.
You know, you give me a torch. You pass me a torch. It's too heavy for you. Well, it's light to me now because there's no flame lighting up. So there's nothing I can do with this torch. So don't give us something that, and then just let go and be like, hey, it's on you now. You didn't give us any energy, any type of, yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? So it's insane. You know?
Well, if that's the case, then if the race is over, if we lost, that means the race is over, which means it's time for us to start a new one. So even if the torch is passed and we lost, it's time for us to relight that torch and start in a new direction with new plans, new strategies on winning this race.
And on the in the spirit of Ben Ami, when he says that we have to define the victory, and for so long the victory has not been defined. So when we're talking about a race, and the reason why we, as VCR said, you might be handing us a torch to a race that's already lost, because somewhere along the line somebody didn't give us a working definition for what that race, what is the victory.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, is the finish line a mile down the street, or is it 10 miles down the street?
Well, now it's a wonderful. That's a good point. But now we gotta, since the millions of people are listening to this presentation, we gotta be clear who are our opponents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who are we racing
And also,
against?
And also, you have those, you know, who does have the baton that's running, that may continue to run, and where their job was supposed to pass the baton to you, but they'll just surpass you and just continue running with that baton because they don't want to let it go and give it to, you know, the quote unquote you or whatever they
And
want.
they're not gonna have enough wind to make another lap.
Exactly.
So
I think
who are our opponents?
Our opponents, it goes back to the video game, Mortal Kombat. You know, when you fight all of these different opponents, especially when you're in tournament mode, and you start with the scrubbiest opponent,
Yep.
and you defeat him, and you work up to a little more challenge, a little more challenge, a little more challenge.
Finish him.
Ultimately, your greatest opponent, when you've beaten the last one, the greatest opponent is yourself. You have to fight. The computer will generate a duplicate of yourself.
And knows your every move,
Right.
your every step.
In this struggle right here, if we are to define it at all, we have to understand that now white folks have us on autopilot.
That's what I was looking for.
We are self-destroying. We're destroying ourselves. The self-destruction button has been engaged, and he can pull his hands back. He's not in Grove Hall busting shots at us no more. You know, those are little 12-year-old, 13-year-old brothers, black boys that are busting shots. So the greatest enemy now is not necessarily white folks like that. They're not hanging us the way they used to. It becomes a rarity or an oddity that we get dragged like James Byrd did, or you know, beat up and raped like the sister, you know, in West Virginia and whatever. It's not as common back in the days, 300 years ago, 200 years ago, 120 years ago, 70 years ago. It was common, an everyday occurrence. But now, the everyday occurrence is self-destruction, which is coupled with our disunity. And our disunity is worse than the self-destruction because it is the overall destruction of self. Religions, spirituality, philosophy, all of these different ideologies has become the greatest impediment to the unification of the black nation.
Well, I would have to say is, we are. There's a lot of self-destruction in our community. However, where did that self-destruction come from? Who taught us to destroy ourselves?
Oh, well, we mentioned that white folks had us. They set us on autopilot.
Right.
So, but they pushed the button. So we know that. But I remember my father used to always say that every time you point a finger, 3 fingers point back at you.
Yep.
Right.
So when we go to the scriptures, we can read in Deuteronomy chapter 28 about the 14 beautiful blessings that we would receive if we hearken to the laws, statutes, judgments, and commandments of the Most High. But then preceding that, on the flip side of that coin, there are 53 curses that we would receive if we went counter to what it is that we were supposed to be in harmony with. So the destruction of our children, the destruction of our nation, our economies, the slavery institution, being brought here on ships, all of these things that are now our reality are the manifestation of not what the white man did, but what we initiated. See, the white man is the belt. And so when my father used to whip me with the belt or my mother with the switch, I never once hollered at the belt and asked the belt to stop whipping me. It was just that tool. So when we put it in its proper context, see, white boy ain't really that tough after all. He a chump. You know what I'm saying? After all, he's a chump.
So he's being allowed by a higher force
There's
to
a higher force.
put us in a certain position.
Right.
But another thing is regarding the lynching. I think the lynching is still going on today, but it's more political.
Absolutely.
That's why you have Michael Vick being accused of killing dogs, and they're holding him as more of a criminal than humans killing other humans. That's why you got them jumping on Barry Bonds over steroids use. They're jumping on all these black athletes for steroid use and all these crazy things. However, when Roger Clemens when it came to light that he was using steroids, it wasn't that serious. But when Barry Bonds, was it Barry Bonds?
Right.
Barry Bonds, Marion Jones.
Marion Jones, when these brothers were using it, it was a big problem.
I want to get back to this. I'm sorry. I want to get back to this whole, passing the torch and passing the baton or what have you.
I think eventually V gonna name some names.
No, I was thinking. No. Well. But I'm just no. I wanna, cause there's a situation where there's a gigantic generation gap, and believe it or not, there is a gigantic gap between the youth and the elder. And if there's a lot of adults, if they're talking about, or elders themselves, if they're talking about passing the torch, sometimes they have to give in to hopefully relate to what the youth are trying to do in our community. Just can't disregard what they're trying to do. You can always reminisce the good times of Motown, and I remember the days where this and that and the other, but today there's rap, and not to realize that rap derived from these great poets and artists like James Brown, the Last Poets, Watts Prophet, Gil Scott-Heron, Nikki Giovanni, Askia Torre, and Mary Baraka, so many of them Yank likes to use. But it's like when rap came along, I remember back in the 80s where adults like, well, this ain't music, that's noise, I don't want to hear this, I don't want to hear that, that's not music, it's not going to last. And lo and behold, it's been going on for how many years? over 30 years. You know what I'm saying? So there's like a big gap between the youth and the elder. That's not the communication is not happening. You know what I'm saying? So it's more of with adults are quick to talk at the youth and not with the youth, or try to chastise them or try to belittle them like, this is what you need to know. It's cool to know and get some wisdom, but not in a very arrogant way. You have to be humble with the youth. You know what I'm saying? So
I think that's a divine lesson with that. Why the elders are so hard to pass on this torch that we're talking about. I always have a saying that if you have a parent who reads a book and gets to a certain part of the book, when you're born, you come into existence, that parent has to go back to the beginning of the book to read to you. So he or she may not have the time to finish reading the book. However, as you get older and you start developing in consciousness, the parent is getting older and more busy at taking care of you, and maybe getting older and sicker and weaker to not even have time to get to that part of the book that they wanted to get to. However, the young people get to another part of the book that the parent hasn't got to. And so he sees different things added on to what the parent taught him about the book already. But the parent isn't trying to hear about that because he or she did not get to that part of the book yet. So she may not understand it. She doesn't have the time to do it. And so what's going to happen, the child is going to grow and then have a child and have to go back and explain to him the first part of the book that his parent taught him, the part of the book that he read, and his child's going to grow, learn all that, and then go past to another chapter of the book where he hasn't got to, and it's going to continue to happen like that. So with our elders, we always get to a level of consciousness. For example, what happened with Yeshua, Messiah Yeshua, the Pharisees wasn't trying to hear him. You know, they thought he was coming to destroy the law, and all he was trying to do was come to fulfill it. It even happened with Minister Malcolm X, that harsh blink Shabazz. He was trying to come with something new, and Elijah Muhammad and maybe some other people in the nation weren't ready for that yet. It happened with several people. And so there's always going to be a struggle with that torch being passed or with that torch being taken, however it's going to be put.
Well, when you consider religion as a whole, and then couple that with you have the revolutionary movement, so you may have some spiritually inclined individuals that are not quote unquote religious per se, but in function and by all definitions, they still become entrapped into the concept of religion, because all throughout creation there has always been inspired men and women of God with a redemptive plan to pull our people up out of the muck and mire of where we were found. What happens is every single instance where a man or woman of God has come, some of us get locked on that plane of development. So when the Israelites were in bondage in Egypt and there was a need for a Mashiach or a Messiah, a deliverer, and so that came in the form of Moshe or Moses. And so now in 2008, you have those who were stuck at that realm of development, so they only reverence Moses. And so 2,000 years ago, with the advent of Yeshua, you know, who came, was born in a paganistic, Euro-influenced society because of the European incursion in the Holy Land. The Romans and the Greeks had begun to occupy the Holy Land, so this is what called forth Yeshua, because he was here to combat that and return his people back to the true deliverance or the true worship of the true and living God. So there were those that were locked in that cipher, not understanding that the spirit of the Messiah is ongoing from generation to generation. So then you have those that are in that realm. And then you come down to someone like Father Divine, who carries the same kind of redemptive spirit, understanding my people, again, just like in the case of Yeshua, the people were being Hellenized, or in Father Divine's case, Americanized, beat down, downtrodden by this American society. And so there was a need for a redemptive spirit. So he comes along and brings this plan of redemption, opening grocery stores, restaurants, hotels, motels, housing complexes, and the basic necessities for the people. But now then you have those who lock into that, and they will never go beyond what it was that he had taught. And then you move into Garvey, and so nowadays in 2008 you still have Garveyites who only want to hear that which Marcus Garvey had said. And so you move into the 1930s, where the advent of Master Farad Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then you have those now who, they may, out of respect and diplomacy, acknowledge other prophets and other divine spirits that have come, but they are not ever going to transcend those particular teachings, that this is all, that this was the end all be all. There's nothing else. Anything you say outside of what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said, you're changing the teachings. You know what I'm saying? And so then you have those who escaped the confines of that and moved into the realms of maybe like Father Allah and Justice, Clarence 13X, right? And then you so you moved on, but there are some that didn't move on. They only want to know what Clarence 13X taught. They only want to listen to that. So I say all of that to say that when it comes to
station identification, this is point 2
when it comes to passing this torch, if for all of their lives, if brothers have only been on this one path, and it may not have been religion per se, it may have just been the Black Power struggle, but it's the Black Power struggle as they define it should be conducted. And so now here comes VCR and Sile and Hazael and Jamal and Iropa with different concepts, ready to move it to, ready to embrace the evolutionary redemptive process, which means it's not gonna be the same, because there's different elements that we're facing now. The enemy, just like, we used to listen to music on reel-to-reels, and it moved from reel-to-reels to 8-track, and moved from 8-track to cassette, and from cassette to CD, and from CD to DAT, and from DAT to MP3, and now they got MP4 and different things. You know what I'm saying? It evolved, but the purpose is still the same, because the purpose of it, the objective of it, is to convey music from one source to another.
Just with a better quality.
Right, with a better quality, better efficiency. You couldn't carry a reel-to-reel around.
That's true.
But now you can have a little iPod. Battery lasts forever. Size of your pinky and everything. But when we fail to realize, when the older generation fails to realize that this is not, we're not supplanting you like that, but this is just part of the evolutionary redemptive process, that things have to change. There are circumstances that will prevail, that will cause us to have to move in a different manner. And so now you and I mean, for so long we've crawled and we've had to suck on the breast of our elders and everything, but now we have teeth. Can't suck on the breast like that no more. I can listen to your words, but I cannot suck on the breast anymore. I have to stand up now. The bones are strong enough. The legs can stand, and I can walk now. And so you have to recognize that and prepare to open the door so that I can walk out of the house and begin the process of building a new house. Like you said earlier, now that we realize this race was finished, there's another race to run, because we're not at the finish line yet.
I was wondering if so how y'all feel about this? I mean, y'all can agree or disagree on this, because I felt it seems to me after the assassination of Dr. King and Brother Malcolm, those who followed both seem to may have lost hope in terms of becoming their own leaders in some ways.
I think that's true. But like Zerahkyah was saying, they were stuck in their own ways. The followers of Dr. King wanted to continue marching, and the followers of Malcolm X wanted to continue talking. So I mean, I think a lot of them lost hope. A lot of them punked out. A lot of them sold out. I mean, a lot of them just straight. For example, Ralph Abernathy straight betrayed King. In his book said that he was sleeping with women and doing all types of things. You also got people who are not even trying to evolve Dr. King or Malcolm X's philosophies. They're just sticking with the same old philosophies from the 60s. Like when I listen to Reverend Al Sharpton's show and Warren Ballantine, or when I listen to Jesse Jackson speak, whenever they talk about Martin Luther King, mind you, these brothers now are like 50 and 60 years old, but yet they still talking about the ideas of a 30-something-year-old brother who is our age. And they it's like them being so old now, still going by the philosophies of a young man who died as a young man. Seems like they haven't really evolved in thought. They didn't go past what Dr. King was saying. They didn't add nothing on to his philosophy, or to Malcolm's philosophy for that matter, or even for Marcus Garvey's philosophy. Even for Yeshua, it's like Yeshua, who they said was between 33 or 39 years old when he was crucified, people are still looking at what he did from a old person's perspective, taking advice from a younger person's perspective. And our minds change through the years and through the ages. So of course, whenever they ask what would Yeshua do, you know, they say what would Jesus do, whatever, but they say what would Yeshua do, we can't really answer that question in this day and age the same way we would answer that question when he was on the earth.
Right.
So you want to add on to that?
I wanted to touch on Ralph David Abernathy, because when we look at it in a different context, because we could say that he sold out Dr. King or this or that, but when we flip the coin, another perspective is perhaps he saw that somebody was trying to deify. But, you know, because if we're not careful, white folks can trick us out, you know, to the degree that they will deify one of our people, like they did Yeshua. You know, where they took this brother from the hood, you know, that had a redemptive spirit, and then they blew it up to a degree that became unreachable and unattainable for you and I. You know, now if he had been left in its proper context and we understood that he was a revolutionary, redemptive Messiah, and that we all had that potential to be revolutionary, redemptive Messiah, then we would act differently. You know, but if I don't know that I could ever achieve the heights that Brother Sile the First is, then I'll never try. You know, so as long as I never try, then I'll never realize the potential of my own self. So now in Ralph David Abernathy's life, he's witnessing with his own eyes the deification of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was great in his own rights. But if we allow someone to take him out, like Wise Intelligence said, you know, in about 20, 30 years, Dr. King would be a white boy. You know what I'm saying? And totally unreachable and unattainable. Anything that he's done, we could never do it because, hey, he was second to God.
And I'm glad you brought that up, the deification of Dr. King. Because as you can see, they're trying to do that to Malcolm X as we speak.
Absolutely.
They're trying to put him in the mix. And it makes me sick. I go into these hospitals at work, And they always have a picture of Dr. King alongside of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington.
They're building a monument.
Yeah, as if, he represented these two individuals, and they always have him in the middle. But Farrakhan made an interesting point one year. He says, if you love Dr. King so much, why didn't you keep him? I mean, these are the same people. You have Bill O'Reilly who want to do these Dr. King specials. Sean Hannity who want to use Dr. King in his debates when he debates Malik Shabazz or Hashim Nzinga or Minister Paul Scott, for example. They say Dr. King stood for love. So they use Dr. King's message because since he was so nonviolent towards them, they want to use him as some sort of messianic figure just to hide their guilt behind. And now they're using Malcolm X because they say he went to Mecca and came back loving white folks, which is a dead lie. And it's even a lie for them to say that Dr. King was bent on love, because he even said that he thinks he's integrating into a burning house. And he was still had nationalistic thoughts, because it's funny how they never play that whole lecture of the Mountain Talk speech when he was talking about taking your money out of white banks and putting them into black-owned banks, pulling your money from Coca-Cola, pulling your money from Wonder Bread because they're not treating black folks fairly, and putting your money into black-owned businesses. They don't play that part. They just said, I'm tired. I may not get there with you, but I seen the Mountain Talk. My eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord, and the next day he's dead. But they don't want to play the whole lecture because now they're trying to cut up his philosophies and apply it to them so they can feel better about themselves when it comes to their wickedness upon us.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, I do believe in another 20 years, if we're not careful with protecting the legacy of our ancestors, they will make him white. He is getting lighter and lighter every year. Malcolm's getting lighter and lighter every year. Pretty soon, these brothers are going to have blonde hair and blue eyes, just like they did Yeshua. Pretty soon, they're going to be writing books and not putting faces to them. And then, like, let me see. Yeah, 100 years or so down the line, they'll be saying it don't matter what color Dr. King was. He stood for love. It don't matter what color Malcolm X was. He stood for unity.
Relive the dream.
We gotta relive the dream. If you don't accept Dr. King as your Lord and Savior, then you won't be saved. You won't get to the promised land, like he said. This is where white folks are going with it. And it makes me so angry when they do that to our people, when our people just fall for this okie doke.
So, in us embracing this torch, I just, now that it's up to us and we're clear that we are the new standard bearers and the new torch bearers, that there has to be a redefining of what this race is all about, and so the first thing, there was a minister from the African Hebrew Israelite of Jerusalem, Sar Eliyahu, who once did a speech called "There's no room for religion in paradise," and that hits hard. that hits real hard.
Yeah, it's truth.
But when we understand what religion has done, better yet, what it hasn't done, because when we go home and we pray and we pray and we pray, we feel a greater comfort in our hearts and our souls and everything. But in terms of any progress for our people, then there is none as a collective. We've had some strides from the NAACP, strides from the Nation of Islam, strides from this, from that. But in totality, I mean, it's all relative. That the further we've moved along, the further our opponent has moved along too. So we're still on the proverbial treadmill.
What's up? I just feel that we're gonna be all right.
Yeah,
We're gonna be all right. We have the technology. I mean, it's like more advanced than how it is back then. Back then they didn't have any type of, no Google or anything of that nature to, see what's going on as far as like background and everything. Today we know. Today we can search. Today we can see, what's the deal here. I don't know if it's any better or any worse. 'Cause, you know, Patriot Acts is it here? Is it, you know, it's crazy right now. So we really have to just be cautious and deal with all the false things that are happening with us, even with our kids. You know, earlier we were just talking about the holidays that we instill in our kids and all the fairy tale nonsense that we plant in their heads. For example, Christmas, you know, the old fat white guy that comes to your chimney, you know, bring you toys. Yeah, you know, we have no chimneys. And, you know, that's breaking and entering. You know, just go into a crib unannounced and give us toys. If I do that to a white neighborhood, dressed as this Satan Claus, I get arrested.
What's funny about that is, are we about to wrap up?
Yeah, we need to wrap this one up.
Okay. Well, all I'm going to say is, before we wrap up, is religion needs to be abolished and the Creator needs to be loved. Because it was religion that divided us. The Europeans religious. African people are spiritual.
Right, and that's what I was just getting ready to say. It's significant to point out the difference so that no one is as offended as they should be.
Right.
That there's a difference between religion and righteousness, religion and spirituality.
Exactly.
We can be spiritual and righteous without being religious. Religion is a concept that the European gave us. Let's give that back to them.
Right. That's how Santa Claus came into existence based on
Satan
religion.
Claus?
Satan Claus. That's how the Easter Bunny laying eggs came into existence. Santa Claus, whose name was another name for him was Kris Kringle, which is, I think, is Swedish for the Christ child.
Right.
How in the world could this old, fat, drunk elf, child molested elf be the Christ child?
We're going to pick that up on part 2.
Yeah, you know, Halloween, all that stuff. So.
All right.
And Valentine's Day coming up, so Valentine's. So
Well,
yeah, be careful with that. Black people are stuck with that.
well, as a final note, we can't, it's like, we got to embrace our holy days and drop these holidays.
Right.
We'll have to continue this another time because the brother's rushing us out of the studio.
The engineers.
Hey man, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy to be here.
We
and
thank
just
you
share the
all.
words.
Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a Beyond Words production in conjunction with the Universal Breath of Life, BloodSkinLand, the Messianic African Nation of Yeshua, the Red, Black, and Green Soldiers of Yeshua,
Grand Architect.
FTC Marketing,
.org.
and of course, PoetTube.
Poetube.org.
Hotep.
Peace and blessings, y'all.